Good morning. Welcome everybody to the weekly Wednesday webinar. We are continuing with the FDOT traffic plan series, and we're looking at chapter 12, Sheet Navigator. Basically what we're going to do today is we're going to look at the FDOT tool Sheet Navigator, and we're going to look at some of the functionalities within Sheet Navigator to help you be more productive, creating an index of sheets, looking at the auto number function. We're going to look at filling in missing information that is on some of our sheet borders, as well as renumbering sheets. You go ahead and close out of the webinar. All right, so we're taking a look at Sheet Navigator. You can access Sheet Navigator from a couple of different ways. You can go to Actions, Sheet Navigator, Label Sheets. Okay, that's one way of going to it. You can also go to it looks like a piece of paper up here. That's also a quick link out there to Sheet Navigator. So if I click on that, I'm going to open this up, and if you follow along with the chapter, I'm opening up the DSGNSP file. You can actually open this from any file that you want to. In order to do the exercises, we just need to be in MicroStation. So Sheet Navigator has two tabs. When you first go into and open up the tool, you're going to be on the Sheet Edit tab. And if there are any sheets in the file, they'll list in the sheets little column right here. It'll highlight one at a time, and it gives you the opportunity to fill in the information in the sheet border. I can fill in my sheet number, my road number, my VIN number for my project, county. I can go ahead and set a print style, and I recommend that you go ahead and put the print style in at this point so that later on when you create a piece set for Plot Organizer that it already has the print style associated with it. I can put in the digital signature note that needs to go on the side of my sheets. I can add in the engineer record cell, pop that into there. I can put in a sheet description. And it fills out all of this information, and those are things that I can put in. If you start filling in any of the data, if it's black, then it's something that will be put on your sheet. If it turns red, for example, if I have the project description, if I can put information in here, but it's not shown on my sheet, so it's going to turn red in here, and I'll show you that in just a few minutes. In fact, let's just go ahead and I'll open up just so I can show you the Plan SP file. Notice that I don't have any information when I come in here. If you've already got Sheet Navigator open, you can click on the Reload All button, and it'll research out into the file. It put it in there. Select Sheet 5, and you notice it gives me the green border, so that if I had multiple sheets, I know which one that it's looking at. Okay, so this is Sheet 5. It has the financial project number. It's in McCullough County. I could put in the road number. Okay, so I put in SR 61. Notice if I put in a description in here that it's red. That means that this information, it's stored with the data. Basically, Sheet Navigator puts in like little data points, and it has ad hoc information that's on those points, and this information is stored with it, but it does not put it anywhere on the sheet, so it's not something that you can visibly see. Okay, along with see the print style, it's in here, but it's red. That means I'm not going to see that anywhere, but it is stored with the sheet. Once I fill everything in, I tell it to save the sheet. In order to start using some of the more advanced functions within Sheet Navigator, I could go to every single sheet that I wanted to, fill out all this information one by one. The other thing that I can do is I can get in here, I can do all of my sheets in my entire project all at one time. If I need to renumber sheets, if I need to go in and maybe add information that I missed at some point, there's a lot of things that I can do, and I can do them as batch processes. When I do that, I have to have an index of everything that I've got in my project first. Okay, so in order to do that, I have to go to File, New, and create, and for this one I'm just going to create a component index, and then I tell it which folder that I want to index. It will default to whatever my working directory is. It knows that I'm in the signing folder, so it's going to populate this with signing. Okay, so I'm going to go in here and I'm going to tell it to go ahead and just build that index. And it goes out and it will come back in. Move that over here. So it's opening up MicroStation in the background. It's going through all the files, and then it finds all the files and it opens up the index in the Navigator tab. In the Navigator tab, there's not a whole lot of sheets here, but it'll list all of my sheets in here. Notice some of them have the S in front of it like it's supposed to. Some of them do not. If let me move this so I can get to all of the columns here. It tells you what file it's in. It tells you what model that sheet it finds it's in. And all of the information that, and it keeps going. Okay, and that's it. So it gives me all of this information. And you can see clearly, okay, I'm missing the state road number on some of these sheets. I'm missing all the information pretty much on the guide sign worksheet down here. I'm missing the S that I need in front of my plan sheets. So those are things that I can do through this tool without having to open up every single file one at a time. So we built our index. The next thing that we want to do, and I want to go ahead and show you guys, is the renumbering function. That is in this renumbering multi-edit process. All right, so if I go in here and I go to start process, it's going to give me a warning and it's going to let me know that make sure that everything is up to date and current first before it starts doing this process, because you can create a index. It's going to save it to my project and I can open this up at a later time, but in the meantime, I may have made changes manually to some of these sheets. So in order to keep you from having to redo work, it's giving you this warning. It's letting you know, make sure that your index is up to date, because otherwise it's going to go through and it may undo the things that you've already done. I just created the index, so we're good. So I'm just going to tell this okay. All right. And then I want to come in here and I want to do the auto numbering process. So there's a little toggle down here that said that enables and disables auto numbering mode. Okay. It knows what order in the sheetinfo.xml file. It knows based on our file names what order these should be in. Sometimes that fixes it, sometimes it doesn't. All right. And so I'm going to tell it auto numbering. So I've turned that on and I'm going to apply the auto numbering. So if it doesn't have a sheet number, it's going to assign a sheet number. Okay. So it already has one. It's not going to modify it. And then I want to go in. Yep, I did it. Okay. So now you can see that it didn't change anything, but it did come in here. It did find the guide sign worksheet and it did assign it a number, and it knows that it's in the signing, so it gave it an S in front of it. Okay. That is one way. If you don't number any of your sheets whenever you're creating them, you can come back and use that auto numbering function to number everything that you have out there in your project. Okay, so that's a pretty neat option. The other thing that I want to make sure that you understand is that until I click on Finish and Apply Changes, nothing happens. There's no changes that have been made. It's only in this dialog until I tell it to apply these changes. The other thing that I want to go ahead and do before I apply changes is I want to go in here. Notice that sheets 5 through 8 here, they don't have the S in front of them, so they're kind of wrong. So let's grab, and all I'm doing is I clicked in the sheet that I want to select, and then I'm just dragging in this very first empty column. So I can select whatever sheets that I want. Okay, and then I want to come down here to this second option, modify the sheet number prefix for the selected sheet. So I want to click on that after I've selected my sheets, and then I want to tell it I want to give it a prefix. And then in this case, I need to give it a prefix of S. And I tell that OK, and it put the S in front of it. And at that point, now I'm ready to go ahead and I'm going to finish and apply changes. And then it'll ask me if I want to update any sheet number references. What that's telling me is that when it goes in and it finds something like C sheet number, whatever, it will go in and it will update that if you've modified the sheet number sequence. So now sheet 12 is now sheet 15. If there's any references to sheet 12, it will modify those sheet references so that they now reference it to sheet 15, which is the new place of where that sheet is. When you're sure about doing that, you want to hit Apply Renumbering. What it did in the background is it applied the changes that I was looking at. So if you look at the sheet number down here, it's no longer just says just 5. It put the S dash in front of it. Okay, so it fixed my sheet numbers. It also redid my index so that all of that information is now current in my index. And so that was exercises 1 and 2. Exercise 3 in the manual is using the multi-edit and add modify sheet information. So I want to come back in here and I want to go back in here and start process again. Yes, it's okay. All right, so I know I'm in that mode when everything turns red in the border. So I notice that I have information that's missing. This exercise is showing you how to add that extra information in here. So I've got sheets, well, I went ahead and added it to sheet 5, but I'm going to go ahead and grab sheets 6, 7, and 8. And I'm going to come up here. There's a couple of ways of doing this. You can either go through the menu, or we do have the buttons on the bottom. Okay, and what I want to do is edit the sheets. When I come in here, I have a list of everything that I can modify. All right, so in this case, I want to change the state road number because I didn't put that in there. Type in the information. As soon as I toggle on any of these options, then it allows, see how this opens up and I can change that setting. And if I turn it off, it's ghosted out or grayed out. Okay, so I can change sheet descriptions, counties, anything that I have on my sheet, I can change from this dialog. So I want to change the sheet number, and I also want to add the digital signature note. And once I have everything that I want, and it's a standard digital signature note, set that up and click Apply. It's going to ask you to, do you really want to do that? Yes, I do. Tell it OK. So now it has that information in it. There's our digital signature note column. My tabulation of quantities, it doesn't have that. So I can come in here and edit that. There's another option to edit, and that is down here, this very first icon at the bottom. And it comes up a little bit differently. So for this one, I just need to tell it I want the standard. This looks a lot like the sheet tab. And then my guideline worksheet, it didn't have anything set up for it. So I'm going to click on Edit Sheet again, and I'm going to come in here and double check the information. It didn't have the FIN number, 049555201. It didn't have the county, the state road number, sheet description, and this is the guide sign worksheet. If I could spell. I want to go ahead and put in my print style, add the digital signature note, and click apply. You may need to go back in and double check when you apply a digital signature note, double check these to make sure that these were put in correctly. So I'm going to click apply here. And what I mean by that is that sometimes some of our sheets are at different scales. If it's a drawing and something I need to scale, it's at 50. So my drawing scale may be at 50, or it could be a key sheet. With the new key sheet, that could be at a scale of 1. Summary pay items could be at a scale of 1. Our tab sheets could be at a scale of 1. But our plot scale, and all of that is based on if you go to settings, drawing scale, it's based on our drawing scale, okay, when we place all of that information. Sheet Navigator still uses your plot scale. So if your plot scale and your drawing scale are out of sync, yes, this tool will place it in there for me, but if my scales are out of sync, this may be too big or too small. So it's always a good idea to go back and just double check to make sure that when you've applied the digital signature note that they're all correct. On my key sheet, this is correct. Don't try to put the state road, the SR, in front of it because that's part of the key sheet cell. Double check the order that you may have things in. You'll notice my tab sheet is on sheet 3. This is sheet 4. So 1, 3, 4. So everything is in order. If I needed to come in here and change these sheet numbers, you can come in here and increment and the decrement of the sheet numbers and data set, and what you guys should have when you go through this project. It should be in here where these are wrong, where the general notes came in on sheet 3 and the tab sheet came in on sheet 4. Typically your tab sheet should have been sheet 2, but because for this example it was a quote-unquote standalone project, so it has a summary of pay items, it threw the numbering off, and all I need to do is come back in here and just use these to get it to the correct numbers. So my general notes should be sheet 4. Let me just put those back in, wrong way. And my tab sheet should be sheet 3. And of course I went the wrong way. Okay, notice that they move up and down through the list as well to give you that visual. Make sure all of this is correct. You have all of your information filled in. Move this, double check everything. So once you know that it's right, then you just tell it to finish and apply changes. And it goes out. And that's pretty much it. I'm going to go ahead and answer some questions. Can you go over the sheet number changes? I've never seen that work right. Hopefully what I just showed you helps you with that, because I showed you adding the prefixes to it. I've also shown you how to increment and decrement, like to get things in the right order. Next question, how can I preset the cell of the engineer of record to include local company engineer information? What I recommend that you do is that information is in the sheetinfo.xml. That sheet info file is out in the f.ss4 directory. If you go out in the MDL apps directory, you'll see there's some sheet info. All of this is related to Sheet Navigator. If you go to the sheetinfo.xml, and I'll just bring it up with Notepad. Notice that in here for the engineer of record cells, that drop down in Sheet Navigator, let me drop that. I might go back over to the Sheet Edit tab, reload. So See this list? So I've got standard and then I have all the districts. If I look in this XML file, I have CO and then I have all the districts, okay? And there's a standard one that comes in here. If you want to have a cell set up, all you need to do is go into the sheet info and add that information to it for that particular cell. There are webinars out there that gets into much more detail. Another file that you can take, and it will, if you have it in, I think it has to be in your project directory, and it will have this information, but that would be project to project, and I'm not sure how to do it on a site basis, but you can go in there and set these up so that it kind of like it uses the two together, and it'll merge your information in with what's in this sheetinfo.xml, because it's one of those things that if it's in the f.dot directory, then if there's an update to this or if we move to a new version, then you don't want to lose that information, okay? But it's just a simple thing of, I would go in that EOR, the cell that's out there in the roadway cell library. You can go into there and change, well, that's V7, the engineer of record for the sheet navigator, because it has a different origin point. Go in there and modify that cell with your engineer of record information name, include it in here, and then make sure that you give it the cell library name of where you put it. I would put it in your own cell library, and then come in here and give it any name and add that to the list, and then whenever you go into Sheet Navigator, it'll show up in this drop down here, and you can just select it and then it would be filled out. The two FPID numbers, the question that I have, let me zoom in here. All right, for the roadway plan sheet, if I try to put in, notice this is red, okay? The roadway plan sheet is not set up for two FIN numbers. If you have two FIN numbers that you needed to put in here, typically the only sheets that we have that use multiple FIN numbers, and the reason that we have the two here is whenever you've got structures projects, if I had a structure sheet here, this would show up black, as well as the sheet description. Notice, well, I could put an extra sheet description in here because I do have the cell in here for the two. Not that it's used very often. I want to see what this does. See how it sees two, and so it modified that for you, instead of using the center, it's using the top and the bottom. Most of the time, and I think the project description is in the structures cell as well, so this would be something that would actually go on the sheet. If it comes in red, though, it's something that Sheet Navigator, there's not a field in here for it to place it, so it's not going to try to place it. So if you had a roadway component, I think the way that you're supposed to do this is that whatever, all of your sheets, even if I had more than one FIN number that's in this project that I'm doing, the second FIN number would go on the key sheet, and then the lead FIN number is what goes in here, because you always have a lead. Okay, so lead FIN number goes in all of your plan sheet borders, but if you have an extra FIN number that all in one project, you would put that in the key sheet. Is there a method to program the match line to show next previous sheet and auto update when I update the sheet number? As long as it has, I'm pretty sure as long as it has sheet number, as long as it's got, because there's, let me go double check this real quick. Actually, it says C. If you were to come in here and change the sheet number references, if you didn't want to say C sheet, you know, as long as it had something here with the sheet number, typically you wouldn't put that on those match lines, and that's why it's not programmed into here. But if it's something that you wanted to do, I can see maybe on a complicated project where you've got multiple match lines and I've got ramps and whatever going on, you could come in here and modify this search property and add another, instead of C sheet, as long as it had either C sheet or SHT or detail, it's going to auto number that and find that anyway. If it was just sheet and you didn't have C on it, you could put the language, however you're going to label that within the XML file, and then Sheet Navigator would know to find that and would update that if those other sheet numbers did change. The question at the beginning about asking about other sheet renumbering, let's play a little bit. So say if I went in here, let me go to a different sheet. And let me put in, say I brought in a detail for right here, and typically you'd want to put this in the text.rd file or SP file, but I'll put it here. And add text. Okay, we're going to pretend. Okay. So I've said, okay, let's see that this was, I want to go back and look at S5 for some detail that I have sitting in here. All right, if I go into Sheet Navigator, and let me go into the renumbering, and let's go in here. Maybe I'm going to have, I know I'm adding sheets or whatever, or I haven't actually done my tabulation of quantities. I can put in an insert, I think it puts it above it. Okay, so this is telling me it's going to adjust it. So maybe I'm adding an extra sheet in here. Maybe I've got another set of notes or another tab sheet that I know has got to be included. So let's increment that by 1. Okay, so starting at general notes, all of these have been incremented by 1. Okay, so that means that the reference on this sheet was referencing to this sheet by 1. Okay, so let me finish and apply those changes. Yes, I want to update those references. I'm going to apply the renumbering. Okay, so now this is sheet 8, and instead of sheet 5, it's referencing sheet 6. As long as this information that it's looking for, I mean, I could have had a whole note above it, but it's searching all of the text on your sheet for this C sheet and a sheet number. As long as this part of the text matches what it's searching for, and I showed you what it was searching for here. It's searching for C sheet or C SHT or C detail. Okay, so as long as the text matches this information, Sheet Navigator will locate it and update it as it changes. Here's another one. If you have other folders and MicroStation files in your root project folder, other than the DGNs for your plans, is there a way not to grab those files when setting up the index? Yes, there is. When you set up your index, and there's and I think it's the sheet info settings.xml, I think, but I'll go ahead and show you in here. Actually, I'm going to go look at my current working directory. Notice down here that I do have some sheet info files that did get set in here. I can come back in here and make some changes if I need to as well. But that sheet info settings, it's basically it's the same file as this, just not as much information. But I want to go ahead and show you where that is. Let me go back here. The way this file is set up, it has the sheet numbers, it has all kinds of properties in here. So if it's looking for the sheet number, where is that at? It'll look for levels. Okay, it even goes back into some of the old levels. And then it's also looking for data fields with links, how many characters are in that, or links of pieces of text that it's looking for. This right here is telling it within, these are basically, it's like percentages of my sheet, and it to define an area on my sheet, because it doesn't know what scale it is. So it knows the sheet when it finds it, and then it goes in and uses percentages in order to locate this area. And I should have within this area, if I find anything that matches this, then I know that's the sheet number. Okay, so it has that information for all of the different fields that it's looking for. But if I come down, and this is a pretty long file, uses this for sheet ordering. If I have files that I just want it to just ignore, we already have some that are set up. Okay, so if it finds a sheet border within any of these, it's going to ignore those. If you have other files that you want it to ignore and don't look in those for sheet borders, you can add that to this list. As you can see, you can use asterisks as a wildcard. And I can also tell it to ignore whole folders. So as you can see, we do have some set up already for you. But if you've got other folders that you've created, a custom folder inside a discipline directory, you can come in here and add that folder to the ignore list, and it won't look into those files. The response was okay, so then it wouldn't matter if the text said match line, station 123, C sheet S, whatever. Correct. It's not finding the sheets I just created. Number one, is it in a standard file? There's a lot of things that it could be. And you're saying that you didn't drop our standard borders and you didn't change them. I can't answer that without actually looking at it. So what I recommend you do is that give one of us a call after the webinar, and anyone in the office can be able to help you in order to figure out what's going on with Sheet Navigator and why it's not finding your borders. I had one, I think, was asking about adding the placeholders. Basically, it just increments your sheets so that you can then add sheets later, and then that number will be available for them. We've got a question about past webinar handouts. If there's more than just one or two slides, the PowerPoint as well as any handouts that we create are posted on the website. I keep saying ECSO. We are not ECSO anymore. We are CAD. You can go out to the CAD website, and let me drag that over here. Scroll down. You'll see we have a link here on our homepage for posted webinars. And under MicroStation, we have MicroStation webinars. We also have Autodesk webinars. But wherever the webinar may be, these are all the ones that we're doing right now are under traffic plans. So you can see under here the chapters are posted along with links to the webinars. The webinars are out on YouTube. And if there have been questions like today, those question and answer documents are also available out here for you to download. Question, can you automatically renumber the plan sheets to be plan sheet 1, plan sheet 2, etc.? I don't know that we can do that. That is not standard practice, and I had this brought to my attention on why you guys do that. But like I said, it's not a standard practice for the plans. Some engineers want to show it that way, but it's not standard. So basically what you want is for the description to be plan sheet 1, plan sheet 2, plan sheet 3. I don't think I can get the description to auto increment like what you're looking for. Sheet Navigator, I can tell it to put in a description, but it's going to put the same description if I use the multi-edit option. It's going to put that same description in every single one. It's not going to auto increment 1, 2, 3, 4 in this situation, because like I said, it's not standard and it's not something that we have programmed into Sheet Navigator to do. It'll do it for your sheet numbers, but it won't do it in here. And that, I'm sorry, that's one of those requests that is just, it's not very frequent. If it becomes the norm and they change things in the PPM, then we will work at getting that into the functionality, but right now it's just not. One more question. Does the project index need to be run at least one time to create the XML file? Locally, yes, it does. Before I can do anything in here to start renumbering anything at all, if I didn't have a sheet index, it's going to come in there and it's going to tell me and give me a message that says that I don't have an index, I need to open one up or create one. So it'll give you an error message if I try to use any of this extra functionality without having an index created. So the answer to that is definitely a yes. All right, you guys have a fantastic week. I hope that this was beneficial, and we'll talk to you next week. Next week's topic is going to be on printing.